So we've been having a workshop since last week with the counties. So we've brought together the ESHS teams, that's the environment focal persons for the program, the GRM, that's the grievance and redress mechanism officers or focal persons. We have the social safeguards. We have the key results area 3 manager or focal person at the county. Okay. And we also have the gender focal persons. So this is the team that we are sensitizing. We are rolling out the environmental, social health and risk management manual. And this is a very important document for the program because it's what we are disseminating here is what we expect in terms of safeguard procedures when the counties begin to implement projects. Okay. Yeah, so it is very critical that we sensitize the counties and that we are all on the same page when it comes to safeguard procedures. So one of the things that we are disseminating also in this workshop is a gap analysis that we conducted in 2025 May. And this gap analysis was looking at the social aspects and the grievance redress mechanisms at the county level. And the foundation of this was, there was an environmental social systems assessment that was conducted by the World Bank before the program was approved. And why the bank does this is to assess the country systems and also to assess the gaps that are there in terms of environmental, social safeguards, GRM, occupational health and safety, just to see where we are at, so that as we come in as a program, what are some of the gaps and how can we be able to address them? So one of the recommendations from that assessment was for the program to conduct a baseline survey on social risk management, or as we call it in the report, the social aspects, grievance redress mechanisms, environmental and occupational health and safety. And so we did these studies into, we did them 2 different times. So we first began with the GRM and social aspects. And then this year in February, we did the environment and occupational health and safety. So basically the genesis was from the assessment that was done by the bank, and it identified the gaps. In fact, when it comes to social safeguards and environmental safeguards, we were rated as substantial by the bank. That's what the report says. And so that means there are some gaps that we need to address when it comes to safeguards. One of the major gaps that was identified is in terms of capacity. When you go to the counties, we find that from KDSP 1 to now, there are officers who are trained, their capacity was built, but they have since left the county, maybe for greener pastures, or they've been allocated different roles. And so there is a gap in terms of capacity, and so we needed to, train the officers that are now within the program. So across the counties, that's one of the gaps that was identified. Number 2, on issues of gender, and that's why if you look at the minimum conditions for this program, is we are asking the counties to train gender focal persons, identify and train, and also ensure that there's some form of gender mainstreaming going on within the counties, because that's another issue that was identified. Okay, there are also structural issues in terms of we have all these guidelines in place, but when it comes to implementation, it becomes a challenge. So there are quite a number of challenges that were identified, and we can confirm this even through the baseline survey. And especially there was a question that we had on what are the social risks and impacts that are most common in projects in the counties. And surprisingly, actually the one that was rated the highest was GBV, sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment.
GBV as gender-based?
Yeah, gender-based violence. And sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment. So that was one of the highest or rather the top risk that was identified across the various counties. And that's what is in the report. And so just also related again to the gender issues that were identified earlier in the ESHSRIM report. Number one, we are headed towards level 2 grants disbursement, and we've just concluded the assessment by the 𝖬𝖲, and as part of preparation for the project implementation, safeguard is a very critical component of projects, because there's a report that was done some time back by, I think, Senator Catherine Momo, and it identified that there are so many projects in this country that have stalled, and why the projects have stalled, it's because of these safeguards issues, and especially social issues. And so the importance of this workshop is for us to sensitize the counties on the safeguards procedures that they should adhere to, comply to, not just because it is our donor funded project, not just because the bank requires us to, comply, but because we want to borrow and carry forward those best practices on safeguards onto other county projects. Long after KDSP II, we want to ensure that safeguards are institutionalized in the counties and in all the projects that the counties are implementing. So that's why it is very important that we take time to take them through what exactly do we expect when they're implementing these projects, when they're from the point of identification of the projects to the design stages, to the implementation and all that. So we are going through step by step, and also in terms of stakeholder engagement, at what point, should they engage the different development partners, the community? At what point should they do that? What are their obligations? What role does the community play? What role does the project management committees play in terms of oversight, social audits, all those things? So that's why this workshop is very, very important, so that we will avoid, this white elephant installation of projects. We want projects that will bring impact at the community level. When you go back to your home county, Oliver, we want you to, see a project that was done under KDSP and be proud, of the work that you were part of, or the work that I was part of. Yes. Number one, on our expectations, I believe once the assessment process is over and they are given the results, they will be allocated money. And so we want, for the concept notes that they will develop, the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies, the project screening processes that they will conduct for the projects they are going to implement, that it is done in compliance with what we have just taken them through. That is one. Number two, we want them to identify lasting projects that will make impact. And we want, and for that to happen, they have to engage the community. They have to get their buy-in. What we say in social safeguard, getting a social license, getting the buy-in from the community, so that they can own it. And in case there are any issues, the community is able to know. There is a grievance redress mechanism in place, and this is where we can complain. You see, so we want them to be able, as when they go back, they can put these structures and systems in place ahead of the implementation of the project. The other thing we're expecting from them is to sensitize other departments. For example, when it comes to the issues of gender, this is a cross-cutting issue. So one of the main issues that we face and was identified in the baseline is budget constraints. Safeguard issues are, they're not taken with the seriousness they deserve, and so even budget allocation is not done appropriately. So we want them to be able to go back and be ambassadors of safeguards, and go and sensitize their various departments, and especially the departments in charge of procurement, finance, their chief officers, their CECs, their governors, so that they can see the value of having, of allocating resources towards safeguards and the lasting impact it will bring at the end of the project. Wow, my Kikuyu is bad, but I will try. So, mami, igikwira atiriri, undu uria turagiri gwika project ino ni twarehe project muciĩ o haria kijiji ati turenda maisha manyu makorwo mendere na mbere. Tutirenda mibango ino tureka ta thirikari irehe maundu moru, no turenda kurehe maundu mega. Turenda mibango ino yoka mumenye niki tureka, mumenye ni atia mungiteithika, undu uria ungirehe ungiteithia andu aitu mone wira, ungiteithia yani kuruta mauru maria the bad things that are in the community. Yes, so we tunataka hii project that ilete maendeleo. We don't want to bring more harm to the community, because in safeguards we say do no harm. That is the principle. Koguo turenda twarekia project no inyuothe mugakena na mukona wira uria ciana cianyu cireka ati ni wira mwega.